Stimulus season is still in full effect, and with like one new proposal every single week, I decided to see what exactly is needed by putting a poll on my channel and seeing what your guys' favorite second stimulus package is, and over 12,000 people responded to this poll, and the results were pretty surprising. So as you already know, the IRS has sent out a first stimulus check of $1,200 to all eligible Americans. Almost everyone has received it. So far, they've sent out 128 million stimulus payments totaling $218 billion in first round funding. That means about 85% of eligible American adults have received their stimulus payment, or it's on the way, and the remaining 15% should be receiving it within the next couple months. There's been a growing consensus among many citizens and some politicians that a second stimulus is going to be needed, basically depending on how long this pandemic is going to last. And there was a survey conducted by SimplyWise in April, and 63% of the respondents said they would be needing a second stimulus check within 3 months, depending on how long all this chaos lasts. So we've been hearing back and forth each and every day, there's going to be another stimulus, there's not going to be another stimulus. So you want to wait, let's go ahead, let's add more money, let's take away money, on and on and on every single day. And I'm just here to report the most current thing. So let's get on to the poll. The first contender we have is Patriot Pay. This was proposed by Mitt Romney. The proposal was an additional $12 an hour through May, June, and July for a total payment of $1,920 per month, with some nuances there for income earners who make more than like $50,000 per year, but I'm not going to get into every single detail on this video. 1/4 of the pay will be paid by employers, and 3/4 will be paid through a refundable tax credit. However, with this, employers would have to foot the bill up front, and wages could easily be 50 to 80% higher, causing a lot of cash flow issues for small businesses. Even though it would later be refunded, these businesses would have to afford it up front. Cash flows are already a huge problem for small businesses right now, which is the whole reason why there's all this SBA funding going on. They do allow businesses to opt in to this program, but I fear that many businesses wouldn't, simply because it's so expensive up front and they simply can't afford it. So I don't think it would be a huge benefit. Unfortunately for Mitt on this one, this was voted dead last on the list, with only 3% of people choosing this stimulus over the others in the second round of stimulus. Mitt just cannot catch a break, can he? So moving on to the next plan. The next one is cancellation of rent and mortgage. I've personally been against this plan from the start, but don't worry, I didn't put my bias into this poll. That's just my personal opinion. Under this plan, rent and mortgage payments will be paid for during Rona, and payments would be reimbursed backdated to April 2020. The Labor Department would have a fund for landlords and mortgage holders to be reimbursed for mortgage payments. There would also be an additional fund to create more affordable housing. So I think the intentions here for this program are pure. However, housing is expensive. People need help. We can all agree on that. However, it's a logistical nightmare. I think that it would take many months just to process the paperwork having to do with this. And by the time everything is processed, we might be done with all this chaos. Just the systems that would have to be built, it would be so expensive to do. It's so time consuming. It'd be inefficient to do. I think it should be renamed the Rent and Mortgage Nightmare Act, but I'll stop hating on this. And it turns out that you guys actually agree. This plan only received 4% of the votes. 4% of people thought that this was the plan to go with. And I'm not super surprised with that. The next option wasn't even a stimulus plan. I just wanted to see what exactly the response would be here. It was the only option titled, "Just let me go back to work." So it was all the different stimulus plans and just let me go back to work. I wanted to see what the response was there. I thought that this one would have scored a little higher than it did, but I also thought there's no way this would ever score first. This option scored 8% of the votes, still double the cancellation of mortgage and rent. So people would rather go back to work than have the rent and mortgage canceled by a factor of 2. I think this option will go higher and higher. People will want to go back to work more and more as more people are bored in the house bored. And let's move on to the big leagues here. The first one up is the $2,000 a month stimulus. This proposal includes $2,000 a month for at least 6 months to all U.S. citizens who are 16 and older and make less than $130,000 per year. This is the big one that caused all sorts of news story and a whole bunch of excitement, and it was a big deal. Payments would continue until unemployment levels reach pre-COVID-19 markers. Qualifying families would receive $500 per child dependent up to 3 children. And as a sidebar here, we also have the second $2,000 a month stimulus act that just came out the other day. So that was not part of this poll. However, they're very similar, so I don't think it would have changed this poll, the total results, because they're so similar. I would almost consider them basically the same thing, because after they're negotiated, either one would probably turn into something similar. The key differences with the second $2,000 a month stimulus, also known as the Monthly Economic Crisis Support Act, is the income cap for full payment is $100,000 per year, scales down to $120,000 a year, in which at that point you don't receive any kind of stimulus, and the child benefit is $2,000 per child per month up to 3 children. And as a sidebar on the sidebar, these are just brief summaries for each plan. There's many details that I'm not giving in this video. If you want more in-depth information on each individual plan, I have a video that goes in depth on each one. So I'm just trying to do a brief overview here just for context on this video. So the $2,000 a month stimulus received 33% of the votes. 1/3 of people thought $2,000 a month, that's the way to go. $24,000 a year, I mean, that is a hefty stimulus that will cost a lot. I did the math on what this second stimulus would cost, and it would be much more than the entire first CARES Act bill in order to do this, and very expensive. Obviously, it would stimulate the economy. What the secondary effects are, we have no idea exactly, and I think that's what scares people. The people who didn't choose it probably had that in the back of their minds as one of the reasons why $2,000 a month isn't the one they chose. So the next up one that we have is the ABC plan, the Automatic Boost to Communities. This plan includes $2,000 up front and then $1,000 a month. Payments would continue until 1 year after the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not a big fan of how vague that is, because who's to say when exactly the pandemic will end, and pandemics generally last years. So that one could be extremely expensive. It'd need a more set deadline. Payments would be made on a Boost debit card, so that was a bit of an original piece here. It wouldn't be direct payments, so there'd be some additional systems that would be set up, and I personally think that would open us up to a whole bunch of fraud, but both of these are very inclusive, this $2,000 upfront and $1,000 a month, and the $2,000 a month. I'm a big fan of that. Basically, every adult American is included, and that was kind of a big issue with the first stimulus payment, that many adults were not included, like adult dependents and just small scenarios where this group is excluded, this group is excluded. A lot of these future stimulus plans seem to be very inclusive, wanting nearly everyone to be included and able to receive payment. But this ABC plan, $2,000 upfront, $1,000 a month, was the biggest surprise of them all. The ABC plan came out with a whopping 53% of the votes. That was a huge upset, because it's not the highest dollar amount for citizens. Now, there were many commenters on this poll that stated people chose this one thinking it was the largest payment, but I don't necessarily believe that, because the options were written $2,000 a month and $2,000 upfront and $1,000 a month. I mean, that's about as clear as it gets. Plus, the $2,000 a month option was the top one on the list. So if someone was just like lazily trying just to click the biggest one, they're going to click the first one. They're just going to see $2,000 a month. Yeah, sure, I'll click that. The $2,000 upfront, $1,000 a month one was in the middle, arguably the least likely to be clicked, and it had the most votes. So I don't think that it was based on confusion. Here's what I think happened. I think, based off of what many commenters said, just receiving something would be the ideal stimulus to them. They don't necessarily need like a massive dollar amount. And looking at the list, I believe that the $2,000 upfront and $1,000 a month seems to be the most realistic of the options that would actually be very beneficial and may actually go through. So it's right in the middle of the pack. You know, things like Patriot Pay, many people look at that and they're like, that's really not going to help me a whole lot. The free rent and mortgage sounds like a pain in the neck. $2,000 a month sounds like a whole lot of money. I doubt that'll pass. $1,000 a month though, maybe that'll pass. So I think that is the reason why people looked at this poll and they're like, you know what, $1,000 a month, it's not life-changing, but it'll help me pay all my bills. It'll help, you know, a massive amount, and it might actually go through because it's in the middle of the pack. And truth be told, if another stimulus goes through, we'll likely see some form of either one-time payment or a combination of tax credits and one-time payment or a smaller monthly payment. So I think that the 53% of the people who chose that one kind of had a realist view towards it, because if we see, you know, all these huge plans like that $2,000 a month per person and per child, that could be $10,000 a month for a family. That's just a way to set the bar super high and then meet in the middle somewhere, and I think a lot of people realize that. So I found this poll really interesting and pretty surprising. I did not expect the results, and I'd like to thank everyone who participated. I can't believe 12,000 people voted. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the results, and is there another poll that you think would be interesting to get some results on, because this was really surprising. I did not think it'd be that interesting. So that's all I have on this. Until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.